Thank you very much, Deputy Wallace. And the next indication was from Senator Niall Donnghaile, please.
Gardaí. Thanks, gentlemen. And firstly, apologies for missing the first part of your presentation there. So you may have covered this. As Mick said, we had a presentation last week from members of the Gardaí and the PSNI. And I'm just wondering in terms, because obviously on both sides there's a lot of farms that either straddle the border, there's some farming land that crosses the border, as we know, as well as a whole range of other businesses. So I'm wondering if there's been any collaborative work with the Ulster Farmers Union and some of the farmers there to bring the pressure to bear on the PSNI and Gardaí to work collaboratively. Is that something that you would see as a positive thing if both organisations, and we stressed this with them last week, were a bit more joined up in terms of it was awareness raising campaigns, or in terms of collaboratively working to make that kind of policing response happen more effectively? Because you're right, and my experience of policing in an urban context in the north is actually quite similar in terms of the problems you've flagged up about, divisional difference and different even branches within the PSNI not talking to each other, right, to tackle problems as they appear on the ground. So I wonder if you have explored that kind of work with your colleagues in the UFU, and if you think within the context of what we're looking at, not least given the onset of Brexit and the concerns presenting around any kind of hardening or a different style of policing along the border that none of us want to see. What would be your views on that? Thanks.
Absolutely, our view would be, and we do keep close communication and meet on a regular basis with the Ulster Farmers Union, and we do discuss that issue. Maybe Barry, you give a report on.
There is a meeting planned for very early 2019 between UFU. Speaking with his senior Guard officer recently, he asked that we would have a UFU, PSNI and Garda Síochána in relation to cross-border cooperation in relation to the various organisations. Particularly, there's a scheme going on. There's a superintendent at the border level engaged with his counterpart on the opposite side at the moment, and what they're doing is on the latest technology in property marking, and it's a dual community group. Communities on one side of the border and the opposite side working together to create a locality as such that they would have property marking unique to the locations, and thereby reducing the opportunity for either would-be or organised crime in relation to theft.
Yeah.
And again, I have been in contact with members in UFU, and as I said, there is a meeting scheduled for early January.
And do you think, in terms of our own work and our study into these issues, that that's something that we should be, supportive of and calling for in terms of strengthening that? Because obviously, I mean, I would argue always that there should be more cross-border work, and there shouldn't be a border at all. But nevertheless, while it's there, it obviously makes sense any day of the week. But given the uncertainty presented by Brexit, and I'm sure for the farming community and rural population, that goes right beyond the issue of policing and community safety. It crosses every aspect of their lives. But because I think the sharper focus brought down on it, there needs to be that kind of collaborative. And may I say, with the greatest respect, it might be worth having that meeting a wee bit earlier than January 2019, given where we are, and if there's any way that we can bolster or assist in that work or in trying to convene some of that collaborative approach, then please do let us know.
But I just to reassure you, I mean, that's just one specific meeting, but we have ongoing meetings with the Ulster Farmers Union on various issues, and that's one of the issues. Barry also attended a conference in the UK. You might give a because we all the four countries do cooperate on this.
The national police chiefs of the UK come together and look at best practices in that, and they had a conference in rural crime back in July, which I attended, and they had established. They have exactly the same problems with exactly the same type of crime, and they treat it as organised. National Farmers Union Mutual, the insurance company, paid out just under 50 million last year for rural crime issues, and this year they had 18 months ago they established a rural crime task force. Small group, dedicated constables and officers in specific areas, and it worked, and they took up the role of community and crime prevention officers, but they were out there giving advice, They were interagency activity where they could phone up. They worked specific weekends. They worked at times when the criminal activity was there, and they were able to.
Across the water? Is that?
That's in the UK.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but we have been looking. We have been looking at best practices in other locations, for the United States or wherever the best practice was that could be applied here without huge cost. But again, the best practice and for example, the latest technologies in property marketing or whatever it is that we can bring into the communities and to IFA members, that's what we've been looking at. But certainly across the use of drones, I mean, even for looking for affected members of elderly members of the community who would maybe have dementia or Alzheimer's and that who go missing, and instead of having lots of manpower out looking, they apply drones. They apply drones in the rural Crime Task Force to be able to scan the countryside when specific activities were going on, and this has been quite effective and a cheap and a very effective operation to support membership on the ground.
Okay, finally, Chair, so we should probably be alert to a specific ask coming from yourselves down the line based on that study and the best practice, because what you have referenced there, I think, sounds good, and I think what we'll probably need to look at, without telling McGranny how to suck eggs, is that there would need to be a dedicated resource and a dedicated unit developed to look at this on a cross-border basis between both the PSNI and Gardaí, given the bespoke arrangement that's going to be necessary as well. So certainly I'll follow that with interest. Thanks, Chair. Thanks, gentlemen. Thank you.
Shannon Dore, and the next.